Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Lowdown by Analysis Tech. I'm Francis Carden, and I'm here with John Reimer, my co-analyst and executioner of this podcast. Um, you may have noticed the name change over the last couple of episodes. It's exciting for me. This is my first The Lowdown, not the Lowdown on No Code episode. So I'm excited to be able to John's going to introduce our fantastic guest that's going to actually spin a little bit on what you're used to us hearing, because this is something that's very close to my heart that I talked about a lot. And hopefully we're going to hear some interesting topics that you are going to be intrigued to want to delve deeper into as well. So, John?
I have no doubt we're going to have a very interesting discussion. We have with us, thank you, Francis, by the way, we have with us today Jouke Waleson, who is the CTO and founder. Did I get that right, Jouke?
Yeah, perfect.
We've had to work on
We've
that,
been
guy.
practicing.
Jouke, we met Jouke through another friend, and he has started a company called Comper that's very interesting to us. The product essentially shows you a map, a dynamic map of the code in your estate, and does some really interesting analyses on that code, and gives you some greater ability to manage that estate. And Jouke, in his role leading this company, has really done some very good thinking, we think, about where software development is going and where coding is going. And we're really thrilled, Jouke, that you could join us today to help everyone navigate a very, very fast changing environment, and lots of questions that are being raised by the advent of AI generated software and code. So, welcome, Francis. Over to you.
Yeah, so definitely welcome, Yoker. And we normally start off all of these podcasts. It's the first time on the podcast, so our listeners will be very intrigued just to find out how did you start your journey? We've had improv, we've had tech masters. What got your journey started in this industry, and what brought you to this point where you started this company and your belief in what you're doing now?
Awesome. Okay. So first of all, thanks for pronouncing the name. Took some practice. It's already great people spending time on getting
We
the
spent
details right.
hours rehearsing.
So I think my journey started by being force-fed programming by my dad when I was 8. He was working at a little company called Hewlett Packard, and he went from like a maintenance technician on mass spectrometers to a support tech, and then to a programmer. So within the company, he really developed himself. He was always interested in programming, but then he force-fed me to when I was 8, okay, you have to start this program this microcontroller in Delphi or Visual Basic, and I forgot what it was. But I was like, I blanked out. I had no clue what I was doing, but I went through the motions, and I think that feedback loop from you do something, you see something happening, and then you change it. That was magical. And I still love that. I try to, within the first company I join or something, I always go to that first feedback loop. Like, what can I do to get the system changing, and how do I see those effects? I think it took a couple of years before I fell in love with programming again, because this was I had to do it. But then later, I started creating my first websites for my school, for example. Then a cartographer, which is very interesting, a cartographer friend of my parents said, I need a website to sell my antique maps online. Can you help me do that? And I was like, oh, yeah, sure. I charge him $100 or something for it, way too little. But I was 15, 16, and I just loved doing that, making money with programming, but also the antique maps. So he showed me a couple of these antique maps, and the stories he knew about them was incredible. So he would have his whole house, the first floor of it, full of maps from 1580, 1600s, all over the place. And it's magical. He would grab a map and said, there's a chance that Columbus held this map. Like there's 13 left. And we know Columbus had probably one of them. And also Hitler, but let's not go into that. So there's like a slight chance that you held like that history in your hands. And oof, I get goosebumps if I think about like those piece of paper and all of the time and energy that people put in maps. Because if you see a map, it makes instant sense, right? But if you think about what has had to happen for that map to be created, that's insane. There's so much exploring, gathering all of the data from the different exploratory voyages, printing it, making something beautiful out of it. And well, here's one. This is the 13 states of America, a map from 1782. First map that has the US flag on it. Beautiful piece of detail there. So anyway, I fell in love with that. Then I started my first real career after studying computer science at Mendix, which we all know, I think. And I was in the cloud division. I built a couple of demos, and I know that Hans de Visser and Johan den Haan, they came in sometimes and said, "Oh, we have to demo to John soon." So I knew about John here before he knew me. Because my team built these products of like sliding your resources up and down dynamically. We built all that. But I was in the cloud part. But what I really, really deeply loved was a new way of programming. So as someone that went through the motions, that knows, that has reached like, I'm not saying I'm the best at software engineering, but there's not much that I would not be able to learn. So once you've mastered that, you're like, okay, so this is it. This is the peak of our profession. And at Mendix, I learned to see that no, there's new things we can do with programming to make it better, to make it simpler. Because this accidental complexity that creeps into our systems because they've like evolved over time, I really wanted to break through that. Well, then after
Well,
Mendix,
John, I would say that that's a unique first for us as well on the lowdown, right? A cartographer to low code.
Yeah.
Hey,
Yeah.
we just keep knocking up these unique firsts.
yeah. And then later on, I decided to build a company around it. But it's inspired by these things, by low code and by new ways of programming and cartography. I did that for 7 years at Mendix. Then I went to become a CTO at a small detour for 5 years at a medical device company. Also learned about regulations and building teams and fundraising, those kind of things. And then I went fractional CTO for 3 years, helped different companies as like interim CTO just to explore what it's like. But in the meantime, I was building what I'm doing now, which is Comper, which is making maps for humans and also for agents, but humans first, to see what is our estate, what software do we have, how is it built, what are the problems with it, what features are actually where in the system. Yeah, that's it.
Interesting. So let's start the conversation, Jouke, with let's step way back. So one of the things that fascinates me about Comper and about your experience with Comper is that you see a lot of estates, and you're seeing, I mean, a lot of folks bring Comper in to help them get a handle on vibe coding, on AI generated software, because they're generating a lot. Take a step back. I'm going to ask you to make a judgment here. A lot more software. There's a lot more software out there. With apologies to Mark Andreessen, you could say vibe coding is eating the world now. Are enterprises better off, do you believe, with this ability to rapidly create a ton of software, or are they worse off?
Yeah, I think generally worse, but in some respects better.
Mhm.
So definitely better for prototyping. So if you're a product manager and you just want to see, okay, what would happen if I do this? Now you can. Also better in that I think a lot of the low-code platforms, what they sold was you can have custom applications, and now you can get them for a fraction of the price. So in areas where you don't have a lot of regulations, policies, internal policies for what your software has to adhere to, I think it's fine. You can now do that way cheaper, and I think that's also why many of the low-code players are in trouble. Because maybe they offer this almost gold-plated app, but you don't need that. It's overkill, and you definitely don't need the platform tax and the login.
Mm-hmm.
I think where it's worse, I think we all know, is like it's just vibe-coded mess, and it's very difficult to build structured, properly engineered applications without engineering knowledge. So sure, something might look good, but if you let an engineer review it, and they will find lots of things. So purely vibe-coded is just a mess. If you let an engineer do oversight, proper engineering, yeah, you might get something that's also has some problems, sure, but all tech has. But just pure vibe coding and just saying, now you just vibe code away, then it's already messy. But if you don't have the broader enterprise context, then it's definitely messy, even for engineers.
Right.
I'm not sure if that
Right.
answered the question, but
Yeah, no, that's fine. Thank you. Francis, over to you.
Yeah, it's interesting, this whole topic, because I've written a lot about technical debt, total cost of ownership, and it's something John has covered at Forrester's in his past as well. And I think that, I've been saying or pushing the narrative that AI generated code isn't necessarily better than human generated code if we stick with all the same philosophies, because code eventually becomes this spaghetti, fragmented, I don't know. And developers don't like, generally, good developers I met, they don't like touching anyone else's code.
yeah.
They don't even like touching their own code a year or two later if they're asked to come back. So if AI is generating the code for them, and then maybe even if, as you said, they're oversighting it and babysitting it and giving it all this little lovely touchy-feely stuff, and it comes out it's really good, what then? Does it become the same quagmire that every other piece of code that makes up all these enterprise software applications the same? But if I understand correctly, with what you're doing is going to the next level, regardless of AI, because this is something coders should have always done anyway, I believe. But what you're introducing is that using AI, not just to generate the code, but actually to put it in a position almost like this model where it's understood. Well, I'll let you do the speech on it, because I know I'm buying into it, and I buy into it every time I hear from you. So let our audience hear from you.
All right. Maybe first a bit of a thought on this like technical debt. You said enterprises have a lot of technical debt. I believe what we're seeing is like the German hyperinflation in last century, where all of your debt and your assets were suddenly worthless. Like in terms of money, right? If you had a lot of money in your bank, was erased. If you had a lot of debt in your bank, it was also erased.
Mm-hmm.
So anything that had real value, like food or housing, that kept its value. And I think right now we're seeing something like the same thing. So software has become way cheaper, but anything that has real value that people really care about, and enterprises have a lot of that, is what retains its value. So I think for a startup where all your code is software, like all your value is the software that you have, that's not great. Like it gets erased. But also, it's so easy to create that maybe you can start with a blank slate and produce massive amounts. But for enterprises, I'm not sure if they're better or worse off, but this definitely is different. Like they cannot see their tech as just an asset anymore. That's basically been reduced to a lot less.
Well, it's not just, I think that the catch here is that the technical debt is monstrous. I mean, it is not just, there's a bit here and that. And we've talked about, you can reimagine your application. And for everybody's benefit, we're talking about enterprise apps, less about productivity apps, because there's a lot of tools that are really good for productivity apps, throwaway almost. But in an enterprise world, and I preach this made up number: 95% of all the enterprises in the world actually could use the same software for most of what they do. But the last 50 years, they've all created their own version of exactly the same thing. And so we end up with trillions of lines of code doing the same thing, but slightly differently, that someone's got to pay to support, to your point. And so I think that your twist on this, I'm going to hand over to John now, but your twist on this is really, really exciting, because you're not just going, let AI generate code, go at it, because that's just like everybody else. You've got a whole different view on this whole model.
I love the I love your reference to the Weimar Republic,
Yeah.
Jouke. And I it just clicked in my head. I mean, the problem that the Weimar Republic had was that the mark was not hooked to the hooked to the gold standard. It was like all currencies today, or most currencies today. Its value was variable depending on
Yes.
macroeconomic conditions, GDP growth, et cetera, and its relationship to other economies. I think that's a really novel way, but I think it's right to think about the value of code as an asset. It's variable now. And
Yep.
I think what I, I dare say that it probably is more variable now than it ever has been before. And maybe that's the real difference, because it was, always did have some variability, to Francis's point. Anyway, I love that.
Yeah.
Hey, we're going to take a quick commercial break here. Uh, Folks, thanks for those of you who have dialed in, that are listening in, watching us. Thanks so much for joining the program. Uh, the Lowdown by Analysis.Tech comes out about every week, just about every week. We've got a real good lineup for the summer. So we'll keep things hopping here. Uh, we Francis and I are part of Analysis.Tech, the group that produces this podcast. We are strategy advisors, and we advise mostly vendor companies, but some user companies as well, um, on their strategies. And boy, is there a lot of demand now these days to get a handle on a very, very fast changing environment. So if you want to engage with Francis or myself, or our colleagues, hit us up on analysis.tech, where all of our work is described there. And we'd love to help you out. Now let's get back to our conversation with Jouke. Um, by the way,
Yeah.
Jouke, I just read a book about the Weimar Republic. It's so weird that you raise that. There's a good new book out about it. Anyway, um,
I
another
think there
another
was a sorry if I can, there was a point,
yeah,
Franz, that you raised, like what we're trying to do and bringing the models back into the code. Is it
yeah,
should we spend a bit more time on that?
yeah. We're going to come to
Oh,
that.
okay.
So another idea that you've put out there that I find really intriguing is dark code. Every organization has dark code. When you first told me about this, my mind went to the dark web, which of course is where all of all of humanity's evils lurk, on the dark web. I'm only being half facetious, but is that the right reference, Jouke? Or is it more dark as unknown?
I would say it's dark as unknown. So
Okay.
I do see
Would
I
hope
do
so.
see. uh, I think fear sells, but my first idea with dark code is it comes from this blog post that says we're going from AI is first was autocomplete, and then it become more and more important, like a junior developer, then a developer, and then finally it's the dark software factory where there's no lights on. Everything that is being produced by that dark software factory, no humans are reviewing. They're just writing the specs or high level requirements. So I made the logical next step and said, okay, what comes out of that is dark code. No human has ever seen it, right? So the lights are off. Like no one knows really how it works. We have to trust our things around it just to make sense of it. But then I also realized, well, first of all, it's a great term. But second, enterprises are awash in dark code already because all of the people have left. I mean, sure, at some point people wrote and reviewed the code, whatever, but those people have left. So your business functions, but you don't really know how or why. And you see that with mainframe um, uh, problems all the time. Like people have long since retired and have no clue how things happen. So re-architecting those systems is that's a big industry. Um,
Mhm.
yeah, but so it's not about it's per se evil. There could be evil there. There could be nasty bugs or even hijacked sessions. If you have used the wrong agent that
Right.
injected something, it could be there. Probably not, but you don't know. You don't
The
know how
point
good
is
it
you don't
is.
know.
You don't know.
I
Right.
will go. I will go one further here. I actually say today it is unacceptable to have code that you don't understand. So I think actually, as you guys were talking about this dark web and the fear mongering or even the evil, I actually think if an enterprise is not working towards understanding 100% of its code, then they are on the wrong path, because the vulnerabilities to their clients, their partners, their customer base it is really scary, especially with what's going on with hacking, potential instigation of quantum computing and all these things. So no, I'm going to actually call out this, John, that this needs to be well understood, that it is no longer acceptable for a CTO, the CEO, or even the board to allow their organization to have misunderstood code, or worse, code that is just waiting for something bad to happen. There, I've said it.
It's a great point. We used to say at Forrester, as the amount of software, that was being built using low code was skyrocketing. There's a lot of software, a lot of useful software built using low code. You used to say software is an expression of your business. And if that's true, which I think events have proven it is, then if your software is unknown to you, then there are key parts of your business that are unknown to you. And that's,
Totally vulnerable. You're
yeah,
exposed and you are totally vulnerable. And if you do nothing about it, and you don't have this as one of your main missions, whether it is AI, whether it is to reimagine your existing software, to analyze your existing software, I'm sorry, you're not going to get a lot of sympathy from me if you allow this to continue and then you get burnt. It's unfair to everybody that's involved with
yeah.
your organization. So listen, we're passionate about low code, no code still. We hear the death of low code because of AI and vibe coding and all this kind of stuff. And we all have a very strong point of view on that. But for you, how does low code play into the future of software with what you're doing? We still think what you're doing is using the conceptual idea of what low code, no code model application development environment was, but you're just now applying that to where it should have always been, right? In code. And now when AI generates code, you can use the fundamentals of AI to say, no, we're not going to build this misunderstood, vulnerable shit that you can't understand. And pardon my French, everybody. You're actually going to do it wisely and properly for the first time ever because of AI. Is that fair, or am I overselling you?
No, I think that's fair. So we're first of all making things visible that you have all the software that you have in your organization. But what I liked about low code a lot is that we have different things as first class citizens in our application landscape, right? So my Mendix modeler, for example, knows what a form is, or it knows that this is a bit of logic. And here we're just doing a database operation, but over here we're calling to Java, and then we don't know what's happening. But here we're just doing a web service call. So we're trying to create little boxes around all of the logic in an application so that our compiler, but also maybe our auditors can reason about it. And any other language is basically a general purpose language, which I think is a terrible idea to build business software on. But that's the reality where we are. So if I write any small line of Python code and it says request.open, whatever, open a connection to another system, it can do that. Of course, if you have firewalls deployed in your production environment, you're more or less safe. But fundamentally, the language can do these things. And that, I think, is a really, really bad problem. And this is where the dark code can get really scary. And that's what we're trying to solve. So we're trying to look at every bit of your landscape. And like low code, where you have a whole new platform and you have to build all of these small boxes from the ground up, we look, what do you have? And we try to draw the boxes around it from the top down. So we're not trying to reinvent the world, because we've seen with low code vendors, it's difficult sell. They don't want that lock in, but we're trying to make sense and restructure and build the understanding blocks, I think, in a sense. So also, I'm still discovering what we're actually building, right? Because we've been around for almost a year, but we're trying to build systems or primitives for understanding what software actually does, and try to draw these boundaries. So this system, no, it doesn't talk to anything else. If it runs, it's fine. Like you can be sure that there's no data flowing out of it. So we identify everything around the system. Does that make sense?
It does.
Yeah.
And is this like reuse until you need something else? It's like reuse first, as opposed to we just build it again from scratch.
No, I think what we do is we look at what you have, and then we say, oh, there is actually a lot of duplication. So maybe it's better if you reuse this, but we're not right now solving that. We're just saying, look, you have a lot of
Right. Mhm.
reuse.
Okay.
But fundamentally, what you said earlier, 99% of the company's software doesn't have to be built because it's just the same as another company, what they have built. Um, that is a very, very big problem. And I think with vibe coding, that's even worse. So trying to make sense of it and saying, hey, look, we've analyzed this system and it's actually, you could just call a simple library to do it. I think those are the kind of hints that we're helping you with.
Awesome.
John?
Awesome. So, Jouke, another topic in discussing the future of software is the roles and responsibilities of IT, of business experts, of pro developers, of people, database specialists, etc. How do you think that the new challenges, the challenges that you are working on, are going to change, or how should they change? The relationship between IT and the business, for example, the roles and responsibilities.
Um, so apart from the whole AI discussion, what we're building is a collaborative platform. So where normally like the development operations was split, and we're trying to build that and bring those together, right, with DevOps for I think 2 decades already. Um, I think we're trying to do the same with everything. So with product managers, with architects, everyone sees the landscape through the same actual lens, like in the same browser. They can see each other moving around in there. And if you have a discussion, you can always go to the ground truth, which is the source code or the infrastructure monitoring part. So you're bringing everyone together, and the boundaries between, oh, this is my job and that's your job, like, no, if we need an expert, bring them into the discussion for a bit. I think that's what we're trying to do. But in general, a lot of these very specialized jobs comes down to trust. So I think what we humans do is caring as a service. So we care about something. So a DBA, right? They care about their database, and that's the emotion that steers them. Like, no, I want this to be 99% reliable, whatever. Like probably a lot more nines. But you have someone that's accountable for this, and I think that in enterprises should not really change, because agents they don't really care. You can tell them to care, but fundamentally, you're not going to hold an agent accountable for the system going down. So in that sense, I think the ownership will stay, but AI will certainly help a lot with debugging things faster and faster and faster, and everything has to feed their context into the LLM's brain so that these problems can be solved much faster. Because that is true. Everything is going way faster than ever before.
Right. And it strikes me that if, I mean, you mentioned collaboration, essentially, if things are moving so fast, you don't have time. We don't have time to work out problems if everyone is in their own silo, speaking their own language with their own version of the truth. We just don't have time for that anymore.
Yeah,
Is that fair?
completely. Because the sprint cycle, you have 2 weeks predictable planning. I think that's
That's
as
gone.
a like a DevOps person before, that was never the case anyway. So system disruptions always took priority. But that will be much quicker now. So
Yeah.
I don't know. It's difficult.
Well, let's not call them silos anymore, perhaps. Let's call them fiefdoms, because it is. There's something wrong about it, right? I mean, it was forced. To be fair to the entire IT industry, this was forced upon us because the way hardware and software and languages evolved. So let's just
Completely.
reset. It's okay, guys, but we've got a lot of stuff to now sort out, because for me, I don't think we need to build software anymore like we used to. That the end game, the enterprise software, should not be built the way coding ended up for these applications to be built. So trying to sum this up, let's look at this from the perspective of the business results, right? Because ultimately, whether we call them outcomes, fantastic outcomes for the client or for whoever's using the software or the end benefit to the software, um, what should I be advocating to my software pros now to say, this is, I mean, I used to call it the digital revolution. Maybe it's, the reimagining of processes as opposed to thinking about the way we used to do them, because we do not need to do them the way we used to. So how would you articulate that to the people doing this, entering this era now, whether they're old or new to this industry, to set up for success? Is that a fair
Yeah,
question?
it's a very broad question, I think. But
It's too broad,
um,
maybe. You're,
one
you're a
one thing
deep.
that one thing that definitely comes to mind is make sure that you're in a position where there's budget available for that position. So budgets.
Can't not be. We've just said you can't not do this. So
No,
if
no,
that,
but sorry, but for I don't mean for buying a tool, but for a position. So you mentioned fiefdoms, and that triggered my thinking a bit. Um, these fiefdoms exist because there's budget available for an engineering manager,
I see,
right?
yes.
To hold they have staff. So if you want to make sure that you have a position, make sure that you're with a chief in the fiefdom, too, that has budget available and will probably keep budget available. So because else there's a lot of things going to change, and it's going to be very hard for managers to defend positions and say, look, no, I still need like 10 people to get this done. Maybe that's not
No,
really on
that's
point.
fair. Like if we were supposed to stick on the same thing, if Robin Hood was robbing the rich to pay the poor, then maybe he needs to contemplate, don't steal everything from the rich, just make the rich and the poor equal.
I
Yes.
heard
Sorry,
you.
Doug.
I heard you saying during our conversation, Jouke, that models are important, and that just generating dark code uh, without a model or with an implicit model is often the way I think about it, is just not a good practice. That take the time to think through the model of what the application is, what it does, its architecture. Is that fair?
Uh, yeah, completely. So if you ask a developer right now, like how do you make sure that your code stays the way I want it, and the way that I think the low code vendors wanted it from the start, is have very strict rules for your agents and say follow these patterns. Don't color out of the boxes, if you will. Uh, that's I think the only way for systems to keep more or less sane. Unless, of course, you buy my product and like we help you with this out of the box. But
Yeah.
but no, but the rules for the rules for agents, for the agents that write the code, but also that review the code, should really be focused on does this fit the bigger picture? So you need to take time and write down what the bigger picture for your code base is. And for architects, I think they need to be the bridge. Like these are the best practices we've seen overall. These teams we've seen perform really well. Oh, let's copy the practices that they use and copy them to other teams. So your responsibility, it's not going to be anymore. Let's create an architecture, a 5-year plan for the enterprise. It's going to be, okay, which teams have the right structure in place? Where do we have to tech debt? And how can we make sure that that's cleaned up if that system needs to be cleaned up to this?
I like
So
that, John. Just before you wrap, John, I'm sorry. Just before you wrap, John, the very idea that AI actually can enforce these things far more than humans having too much flexibility. It almost becomes the sentinels needed to stay within guardrails, not just within the running app, but the way you build the app within a model. It says, no, I'm not going to let you do that. Or if you try to do that, you keep enforcing it on me, I'm going to take that up the chain and say, something's going amiss here, because I think it is using AI to enforce this new era of thinking, so we don't make the same mistakes of the past and we don't end up with this mountain of debt. So John, back to you for a wrap.
Well, Jouke, this has been, as expected, a fascinating conversation.
Intriguing.
We really appreciate you taking some of your time. You're building a company, and we know you're super busy, but your insights, I think, are really going to help a lot of people. And we'd love to stay in touch with you as your journey continues. You
This is
could,
a hot topic. This is hot. This
yeah.
is hot.
Yuka,
Great.
if people want to know more about Comper, they can just go to comper.com. How would they find more about
Comper.io. We're still trying to get to .com, but Comper.io or getcomper.ai.
Okay. So
Okay.
guys,
We'll put that in the
thanks
list.
for tuning in. Next look next week for a new episode of the Lowdown by analysis.tech. Like I say, we're here about every week. Thanks for tuning in. If you like what you hear, hit the share button, hit the like button, subscribe so you don't miss anything. And we'll see you on the next episode of the Lowdown by analysis.tech.
See you on the other side.
Thank you.